And welcome to the Dynasty Playbook, Dynasty FF's dedicated podcast. I'm your host, Drew. You can find me on Reddit at EAF_Marine and on Twitter at DrewDotsonNFL. With me is my co-host, Tyler. You can find Tyler on Reddit at Barrels. And my second co-host, Scott. You can find Scott on Reddit at Stewie35. We got the gang back together for a second week. Hopefully things go a little smoother this week. The show doesn't get cut off for the last 10 minutes. Hopefully we have a good show.
I thought the cutoff was very nice. It gave a good touch to the end of the show, just real quick, just cut it all off. That's how most good shows end, right?
Right, like right in the middle of sentences.
Just, how does it... Let's go. It's done. Over.
Well, we could talk about the Super Bowl, but let's not do that. So we're going to move straight into our college player discussion for the week. Like we talked about last week, from this point on, for the rest of the offseason, we're going to do one, not exactly big school prospect, but a bigger name prospect. Somebody's going to go in the higher rounds of the draft, and then we're going to do a smaller name prospect, somebody that's going to be more of a flyer in the later rounds of your draft. These flyers, we want you guys to suggest them. If you guys can post them in the threads for the draft, or for the threads for the podcast, or in the threads for topic suggestions, we'd love to get your feedback on it. Or you can just send them to them in PM. But let's go ahead and get started on the college player discussion for the week. Our big name for the week is Jaelen Strong, who is a junior wide receiver at Arizona State. This guy's young. He'll be 21 at the start of the season, and we'll let our resident Jaelen Strong fanboy start us off. Tyler, tell us what you think.
I love Jaelen Strong. Been watching this kid. I've been watching tape on him for months now, and a few of the live games. Really, really impressed with him. He's a long strider, quick burst, does well against the press. I mean, he's one quick juke, a little action with the hands, and then he's out. Good blocker. His route running needs some polish, to say the least. But he has excellent hands. I mean, this guy, to me, profiles as a true number one. I mean, I'm really, really excited about this kid.
Yeah.
What do you think, Scott?
I'd have to agree with a lot of what you said. I watched some video today of him, and a lot of what you said is directly on point. He was really good at getting off press, which is something I feel like a lot of college wide receivers kind of struggle with. They're not sure exactly how to do that yet. So that was good to see. I was a little bit worried about his blocking. I think the first video I watched, there was like one or two plays early in it that he wasn't blocking hard. And then I think the second or the third video I had, there was a play where he blocked 20 yards down the field, pushed the guy out of bounds, and then I think he pushed him even after that too. So, I mean, he definitely has great effort. Saw him burn a couple guys. He didn't have great route running, but there was definitely times where his route running was very good. So, I mean, as long as he continues to work at it, I think he can get there. And besides that, I think he's definitely he's shown, like you said, the wide receiver one ability. He's already running a lot of routes that wide receiver ones in the NFL are running. He's running lots of fades. He has the back shoulder pass. He's got good body control in the air. He uses his hands well, and he grips that ball really tight. I mean, I saw multiple plays where he would catch it, and there'd be a guy trying to smack the ball out of his hands at the same time, and he got a good grip on it. So lots of good things to see out of that guy. I'm pretty excited about him coming out the draft now.
Yeah, you're not the only ones. The biggest plus to me was the biggest minus I had on Devontae Parker is this guy makes catches in traffic. He makes if it's a contested ball, he's coming away with it. And that to me is a trait that's going to transfer to the NFL, because every pass he's going to catch in the NFL is going to be contested, especially because he has trouble gaining separation, and I think part of that has to do with needing more polish in his route running. His route running's inconsistent because at times it's immaculate. He runs his routes as good as anybody, but then other times, he chops his steps. He doesn't really have a problem with rounding off his routes. He takes, he's sharp, but he makes unnecessary movements. He wastes movements in his routes. But I think all of that is stuff that can be coached out of him. I think that overall, the places where he wins are a lot more important because they're a lot harder to teach. I'm very excited about him. This guy's easily my number three wide receiver in this class, behind Cooper and White. I know, Tyler, you feel the same way.
Yeah, that's about where I have him. There's a couple new videos came out on him this week, and the Utah game to me was just super, super impressive. He made a couple of really nice physical catches, one in the end zone in particular where you'd swear you're looking at Dez Bryant. I hate to make comps like that, but the way he just went up and snatched it with two hands and came down with it was pretty impressive. And like Scott said, the blocking, he was an animal. I mean, he would engage the corner. He's a really good stock blocker. So I was just super impressed. And then there was a play that Drew and I had talked about a few weeks ago versus USC where he runs a little in and up and just roasts this guy. I mean, ate him alive. He didn't catch the ball, but I don't care. You know, the ball was overthrown, but he just burned this dude. And if you're playing corner for USC, you're no slouch. So I love the kid. I'm ready to take him, 103, 104, somewhere in that range today.
Yeah, that route sold me.
I really like him.
That route made me fall in love right there. I love the part where he dives for it. He gives up his entire body to try and catch this ball, and he still doesn't catch it, but he still gets up right next play, goes for it again. Yeah, this guy's got heart. He puts everything into this game. He's got real drive for the game, which when you got players like Royal Green Beckham and Josh Gordon right now, it's a nice thing to see.
Yeah, I just to add on a little bit to what Tyler said. He said you could have sworn you've seen Dez Bryant out there in that Utah game. Looking up Dez Bryant's stats here, he's 6'2", 220. Jaelen Strong's actually taller than Dez Bryant, which I was surprised to see. Jaelen Strong's 6'4", 205. I mean, he can bulk up a little bit, but he's got that size that you want in a wide receiver one, and he gets up there and he gets the ball at the high point. There's lots of good things to see out of this guy, things that you can't really teach, like the body control, in my opinion. I think that's something that you don't see in a lot of receivers as well as you see in what Jaelen Strong already has developed. The back shoulder throws, yeah, it's a lot about chemistry with your quarterback, but if you can't do that with your body, if you can't be running forward and jumping from your back shoulder anyways, I mean, if I tried to run that route, you'd know it was coming the whole time because I'd be leaning into my back shoulder. I'd be turning all the way around. I'd be like, okay, I got to prepare myself. So, I mean, just the ability for him to just be able to turn and jump like that, and his athleticism, it amazes me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure that's enough of a love fest for Jaelen Strong. I feel like we've said that all that needs to be said. You guys have any last things you want to put on him before we move on?
No, I'm good.
Tyler?
I think we hit it all. I think we hit it pretty solid there.
All right. And this next guy is another one of Tyler's guys coming out of the University of Texas. Is Malcolm Brown. He's a senior running back. He's been on and off with injuries after coming in as a 5-star recruit. He's been a part of a timeshare most of his time there. He's kind of really flown under the radar, even though early in his time there he showed a lot of promise. And Scott, I'm gonna let you go ahead and kick us off.
All right. So the first game I think I watched was the Ole Miss game from 2012. So it was a while back, but a lot of the things I think he's only improved on since. I didn't get to watch any from 2014. I saw a couple games from 2013 though. I think he is a guy that could excel really well in the right system. I think he has a lot of things that you already like in running backs that are out there. Something like Ray Rice, how he has a really good low center of gravity, and even when he gets hit, he can keep his feet planted and figure out a way, no matter which way the guy's coming at him, to keep his body over top of his feet and keep moving after the hit. He's really good on the stretch plays, on zone plays, of letting the blocks develop as he's moving out there and then cutting and finding that hole and getting small to get in between two guys that might be closing in on him. Thought that was really good. I was kind of confused by his hands, to be honest. There's a couple of plays I saw where it looked like he couldn't drop a pass, and then I watched 2 or 3 passes go straight through his hands. So that's an area of concern. He can't really catch out of the backfield great, or at least consistently, I'd say. And his blocking was something I just didn't see a lot of that I'd want to see more of if I'm going to be putting him on my team to protect my quarterback.
Good deal. Tyler, go ahead and pass it to you.
Yeah, I mean, I can kind of echo kind of some of what Scott said. I actually had a note written down about his receiving is that he's an awkward but efficient receiver. He had a few bad drops, but we really didn't see a whole lot of what he's really capable of, as a receiver. And you mentioned that he was in a committee for most of his career with Joe Bergeron and then later Jonathan Gray. So, he's splitting time so much, it's tough to say what he's really capable of. But, we're talking about guys that we're probably going to be looking at in the 3rd, 4th round here. And I think depending on landing spot, if he can get in like a Kubiak scheme, something like that.
Oh. He's back?
I think he could be a pretty good...
Tyler, you still there?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Dad,
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right.
All right.
Sorry.
You're all good. I'm going to take a look at some of the notes I had on his pass catching. The one note I put down was he turns his back every time he receives the ball. Like he does a full little 360 spin, turns his back to the defense before he orients himself upfield. That to me it's definitely a wasted movement, but it's almost, I don't even know what to do with that. It's definitely something he's going to have to work on because NFL defenses will eat him up for that. But in terms of just as a pure runner, I saw a lot to be impressed with. Like Scott brought up, his vision, he was constantly aware of what multiple defenders were doing at one time. He'd have options between multiple holes to go to, and you constantly see him choose the hole of least resistance, even when it takes a hard cut to go to that hole. Speaking of cuts, this guy makes some of the sharpest cuts I've seen, and he makes it look almost effortless. And that to me is a big plus for his game. He has fairly strong legs, which works well with his pad level. Falls forward. He puts out full effort with every run. And I don't know that he'd be able to be I can't even think of the word right now. Pretty much a 3-down back by himself. He's going to be part of a committee somewhere. But I feel like he could still produce as part of a committee back. He could be, a low RB2 in the right system. But in the 4th round, I'm willing to take a shot on the potential that he could be more than that. Because if you look at his games from Ole Miss, in 2012, 2013, he's definitely still got some explosiveness to his game. And even looking at the 2014, his bowl game against Arkansas, where his entire offense was a shit show, he still was able to put up a respectable game by himself. Anybody else have anything they want to hit on Malcolm Brown before we move on to our submitted questions for the week?
Yeah, I just wanted to go ahead and retouch on the whole draft position aspect of it. Just to say that I think landing position is going to have a big difference on where I would draft him. I think if he goes to a team that does a power running scheme, I'm going to be less likely to draft him even in the 4th round. I might wait until the 5th, depending on how long your drafts are. I know some that go up to 7 rounds. So, I mean, if you have a longer draft, I'm definitely waiting if he goes to a scheme that I don't like. But if he goes to a scheme where they're running zone blocking or they're doing lots of stretch plays, or they already have a strong passing attack but no big running back ones, and they're looking to do a committee approach, that's definitely the time that I'm getting him late 3rd, early 4th round. So I think this and a lot of the later guys, early guys, I draft no matter what based on talent, regardless of where they land. But I think the later guys, you need to be paying attention to where they're going as well. So I think this is one of those guys where if he goes to a scheme that you like and you think he can excel in, which in my opinion would be a zone or a stretch scheme, I would definitely I'd take him late 3rd, early 4th.
That's fair. Tyler, I see you moving. Are you still with us on audio?
Am I?
Yep, I can hear you.
You sure are.
All right. Tyler, you have anything else you want to hit on before we move on?
All right, good.
Oh, no.
I think we got it.
All right.
All right, we got it.
All right, I'm going to check out for a minute, try to fix this crap.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and move on to Sticky Z's submitted question, who's one of our moderators on the sub. My question is about what to do in year 2 of a rebuild. You inherited a team a year ago, sold off its aging pieces, drafted a crap ton of rookies. Now it's 1 year later, you've done your job snagging the 101, and you're looking for the next step. Do you continue to sell some of your hits for more picks, sell your picks for players and try to compete, bide time, help? I'm going to go ahead and take a start on this because I'm in this situation. I took just an absolute garbage team last year. Shipped off as many players as I could, got as many rookie picks in the 2014 draft as I could. Came away with Brandon Cooks, Allen Robinson, Dante Moncrief, Devontae Adams, and I think ASJ. Finished the season with the 102. Should have had the 101, but lazy person didn't set their lineups for like the last 4 weeks of the season. The commission didn't say nothing.
It's not potential.
I'm not holding a resentment or anything. But I think you started off on your path by clearing out all the old pieces. If you still have old pieces left over, I'm selling those for picks. But if you have an extremely young roster, I'm on the path of just continue to hoard your picks. Use them to continue to build your roster with strong players. If you have bottom of the roster players that have some value, but they're not ever going to start for you, package them with your later seconds. Try and move up in the second. Try and get these players that can have more of an impact on your team. But all in all, I'm not rushing to compete if I just finished if I'm just in the early stages of a rebuild. I would rather take my time and have a juggernaut in 2 years than maybe have a chance kinda now and in a year. Scott, I'm gonna go ahead and pass it to you, and I want to get your thoughts.
Yeah, so I'm in a similar situation. Not quite inherited a team. I went ahead and started my first Dynasty League, I think 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago now. The first one I got into before getting into 12 the next year, or however many I decided to be stupid about. But so I took that team and I went ahead and I was used to redraft. So I drafted old. I drafted guys like Peyton Manning, Marshawn Lynch, all these old guys, and they took me to 3rd place in the first year. I was super excited, but I knew I had to change everything because it wasn't going to work for more than one more year after that. And I didn't think I had enough depth to make it through another season without worrying about injuries and then not making it anyways. So I decided to resell, and I went out and just sold everybody. loaded up on picks, but that was mostly for this offseason. So now I'm here, and I think my main goal is to, although I already have a decent amount of rooks and a decent amount of picks, I want to keep building up wide receivers. I want to have so many wide receivers that everybody else feels like they don't have any stud wide receivers, and I have like 6 or 7, and I can only start 3. After I do that, then I'm willing to start trading away some of my young guys, my young pieces that I feel like could be the start to the rest of my dynasty team. But in my opinion, the goal of a rebuild is to build a core, and the players besides quarterbacks that are gonna be the longest life for a team is gonna be wide receivers. So I'm stacking up as many great young wide receivers as I can. If you got Odell Beckham after his first big game, great job. If you drafted any of those young wide receivers that went pretty much anywhere in the first 2 rounds last year, great job. Hold on to those guys. And I think after you build that core of wide receivers, then you can think about starting to do other things with your roster. Normally I go with getting one big tight end after that, and then I fill in the rest as I'm starting my actual runs. But I think most important is to definitely build your wide receivers first. Build a good, strong core of at least 4 guys. If you're starting 2 or 3 wide receivers, you need at least 4 great wide receivers that you feel really comfortable starting every week. You can put them in your flex. You can leave them as your wide receiver spots. Usually wide receivers can be used in the most positions or have the most positions to be started. So I think on top of them having the longest shelf life, you want those wide receivers young, and you want to hold on to them. And then after you do that, I think is when you can start molding your team more to exactly what you want to do to make that run.
Awesome.
What do you think, Tyler?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. Wide receiver is king in dynasty circles, and young wide receivers, that's even better. So, I took over a horrible rebuild last year, just the worst thing you've ever seen. And the first thing I do is try to start stockpiling young wideouts. Stedman, Bailey, Jeff Janis, just taking flyers. Because I want as many lottery tickets as I can get. If I'm rebuilding a team, I'm not gonna play it safe by any stretch of the imagination. I'm gonna trade for picks. I'm gonna trade proven commodities for what I can get. I traded Colston and Roddy White for Jay Samaro in a 3rd rounder and almost got laughed out of the room. But at the time, I'm like, I'm just taking what I can get, just getting what I can, and trying to stockpile as much youth as possible. Because a true rebuild, you're 2 or 3 years away from getting anything done anyway. So at least that's my take on it.
Yeah, I feel like we're all in the same boat. No reason to rush a rebuild and to try and compete and right again. And as far as that Colston Roddy trade is considered, I don't think you could get a 3rd round for either of them right now. And Amaro's worth a 2nd round pick by himself, so joke's on them.
I'd like to re-hit on what Tyler hit on. Take chances. You're already rebuilding. You're already at the bottom of the league. You might as well take those chances. Make those decisions that other teams are too scared to make. Take a chance on a guy. I mean, if you didn't know anything about a lot of the wide receivers last year, and then you took a chance on a guy in the 2nd round and traded for him for some known commodity that people were thinking was way better, and then 3 weeks later he blows up, you look like a genius. And you can do that 5 or 6 times and hit once and still look like a genius. It doesn't matter. You're already rebuilding. Losing these old pieces that aren't going to help you in the future doesn't affect you anyways. I think don't be afraid when you're already in the rebuild. Just go ahead and take those chances. I like that.
I'm going to kind of expound on that a little bit because I really like where that goes is take the chances. Take the chances on the guys who have the real upside. Don't take the chances on the guys who, if they hit, might be wide receiver 3s. Take the chances on the guys where if they bust, they're not even in the league anymore, but if they hit, they're potentially wide receiver 1s. Because if they bust, then you're one step closer to just having another 101 pick, and that makes your team stronger. But if they hit, then you got a wide receiver 1. There's no downside. But or you could take the somewhat safe risk of getting Marcus Colston for 6, 7, 8 years, and you get, 8 touchdowns and just short of 1,100 receiving yards a season. Not really going to win you a championship. It's going to get you almost in the playoffs or in the playoffs, and that's going to get you the 107, 108 every year, and your team's never going to get better. Go big or go home.
I like it.
Let's go ahead and move on to our next question from I Really Shouldn't Be On, which I don't know why he submitted the question if he shouldn't be on, but I'd love to see what you guys think of AP's value at this current moment. With all the speculation and risk factored in, is he a buy, hold, or sell? And if sell, what would you be looking for? Tyler, I'll go ahead and let you start us off.
Well, he's certainly not a buy for me. Let's assume he comes back and has 2 more years. 2 more AP years. I think that's probably a stretch, really. I mean, he's superhuman. He's AP. He's whatever he is. But I'm not paying for him. If I own him, I'm selling him. And really, I think if you're looking to sell him now, you missed the boat, man. That needed to be going on 12, 18 months ago, in my opinion. Like I said, would I be surprised if he came back next year and was top 3 RB? Not really, but I just want nothing to do with the whole situation. Honestly, he's an old running back, and now he's got these character issues or whatever you want to call them. So he's just not on my radar at all.
Yeah, I like that. For me, I would have to agree in the fact that I'm not buying or selling him. At this point, if you're trying to sell, it is way too late to try and sell. You are past the boat by a mile. I mean, there's no chance. You're not getting the value that you want out of him. If you're buying, I don't know what situation you're in to where you're trying to buy him. I wouldn't buy him even on a team that's about to compete. I'd rather use my pick that I'm giving up or whatever else I'm giving up to try and get one more piece. I'd rather use it on a different player. Anybody pretty much besides AP at this point or Ray Rice. In my opinion, I'm not buying him and I'm not selling him. If you have him, I mean, at this point you're already screwed enough. I'd hold him. I'd continue to hold on to him and hope you can get a little bit out of him. Maybe, he has half of a good season next year and you put him on the trade block at that point. I think right now is not the time to sell, and I don't know what situation you're in to where you'd be wanting to buy him with how uncertain his future still is as well.
I agree on the point of hold, because I'm certainly not buying either. I don't care what the situation is. I don't care if Trent Richardson is my RB2 and I have to start 2 running backs a week. I'm not buying him. You have to hold him right now, because if you sell him, if you can get an early 4th at this point, I'd be happy. And that's a sad fact of the matter. You might as well just hold him and hope for any sort of hype in the off season. If his suspension gets cleared, or if the Vikings let him go, or if Dallas picks him up, or if something happens, if any sort of hype happens, and one guy in your league is like, oh, I got to get me some AP, and you can sell him for the 303 and jump off the train, do it. If you have to sell him right now, and you can get the 312, I'm doing it. Because, like Tyler said, he's 30 years old at the start of the season. Besides Fred Jackson, name fantasy-relevant running backs that are over 30. How good has Frank Gore been since he turned 30? Not. How good has Steven Jackson been since he turned 30? Shitty. I don't care if it's AP. Age is what's causing the decline. It's not the amount of carries. I don't care that he took a year off of football. When you get old, your body degrades. It takes longer to come back from injury. It's just a fact. So I'm not going to bet on him being the exception to the rule. I'm going to assume that his career is going to follow the exact same trend that 98% of every other running back has followed for the last umpteen years. You guys have anything to add to that?
Nope.
No. All right. We've had some hate fest. We've had some love fest. Let's move on to our next question. This comes from Sickle Cells. What should you do with your veteran guys that don't get playing time on your roster? In particular, Sproles and Colston. Hang on to them for another year. Non-PPR, so Sproles just hangs on my bench. Little to no trade value. First of all, with Sproles, if you can trade up from the 305 to the 304 and get Sproles off your roster, I'm doing it. Because in most leagues, he's borderline droppable. You're not going to start him most weeks. So if you can get anything of moderate value for him, I'm doing it. Colston's another guy I'm going to try and package up because, again, he's aging. Chances are he might get cut from the Saints this season because he's got a fairly large cap hit, and he had a very down season this year. Pains me to say that because Colston's one of my favorite players on the team, but we're high over the cap, and it's going to be one of the quickest ways to fix it. You might want to see about moving him now. If you can get a late third for him, that might be cashing out for high value on him at this point. He's another guy you might want to look at just packaging with a pick and seeing if you can move up in the round. Actually, I just noticed that's non-PPR for Sproles. You're not getting shit for him. You're just not. I mean, do you guys disagree with me? Is Sproles worth anything in non-PPR?
Not that I know of. I haven't seen him being worth much of anything in non-PPR leagues. He's mostly a pass-catching back at this point. So, little to no value in non-PPR.
Yeah. Do you have anything else to add on to the question in general?
I would say, really, at that point, I mean, you're already getting rid of the guys, right? So I'm going out and I'm seeing what I can get. And versus dropping him, unless there's someone on the waiver wire, like, over-dropping him, I'm taking a fourth-round pick. I'd rather have that fourth-round pick 7 out of 12 or something than not have anything. I mean, you're already losing the guy regardless. So if I already don't like him, I already don't want him, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to get something for him if I'd rather have that than nobody. Especially, I mean, in most leagues that I'm in, or all my leagues that I'm in, draft picks don't take up a roster spot. So you get this free draft pick, and then on top of that, you still have another roster spot to add another player. So I don't see why not to at least give it a try. Go ahead and try and trade him, even for just a little bit, even if it's nothing. And it seems like, why am I even trading this? I'm getting the last pick in the draft. Last pick in the draft is better than nobody, right? So, I mean, you get one more flyer, you get one more chance, you get one more guy. It doesn't matter. In my opinion, I think might as well at that point. You already don't like him. He's already not playing on your team. You're not losing anything by getting rid of him. Go ahead and try and gain something by getting rid of him.
Yeah. Tyler, you got anything to add on to that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Scott. I mean, obviously it's always better to at least try to get something rather than just outright drop a guy. Sproles and non-PPR, unrosterable. I doubt if you could get even a scrap for him. And anything but the deepest of deep rosters, he's probably not going to bring you any return and just needs to go on the wire. Colston's a little bit different for me. If I'm a team that's going to compete and I'm playing in a league where we're either flex heavy or we're starting, 3-4 wideouts a week, I could see Colston having some value on your roster if you're ready to win now as the bye week fill or if he has a juicy matchup. This is all assuming he stays in New Orleans, of course. he's all over the map. You never know what his production's going to be, but you could do way, way worse than Marcus Colston as a 1 week bye week guy or something of that nature. But at the same time, if you can get a draft pick for him or a younger guy with upside, or even throw him in on a package, no problem moving him regardless of what my team situation is.
Sounds good.
All right, so our next question submitted here, it says, more of a rant than an actual question. Can you discuss player values with the context of filling up a roster versus it being too good of a value to pass up? And then it also says, I just have been seeing an increasing trend on the board where people are asking for situational information for clear-cut trade. I think context is generally important, but in cases, the amount of value being presented is too great to decline. And if it puts you in a worse roster situation, then you can really move those pieces that you obtain to better your situation. End rant. So let me go ahead and highlight that again here. The question's actually, can you discuss player values with the context of filling a roster need versus it being too good of a value to pass up? Tyler, I'll let you go ahead and take the lead on this one, if you're still with us. Oh, I see some movement.
All right, you got me? Okay.
Yep.
So for me, roster need doesn't really come into play too much. Typically, we're going to be starting 2 running backs, 3 wideouts, 1 tight end, what have you. All right, so let's say somebody wants my RB2, and they're coming in with a nice wide receiver 1, and I'm going to have to start Robert Turbin as my running back 2 to get this wide receiver. I'm going to make the deal. I'll take a hickey at another position to gain talent, to gain value. Like I said, if somebody's coming in with, a clearly better player, a clearly better dynasty play for one of my guys, I don't care what his situation on my roster is. I'm going to take the better player 100% of the time.
Clearly with you, Tyler. The only time my roster comes into play at all is if the player values that they're coming at me with are relatively comparable. If I could see somebody taking either side of the trade, I want to see if the side they're giving me fits better with my roster needs. If I could look at the trade in a vacuum and say I would absolutely take one side of that, regardless of roster, then I don't care what my roster looks like. If I would be able to say in a vacuum for someone else, then I need to be able to say that it would work in a vacuum for me as well.
Yeah. I basically echo both your guys' feelings. I think that if you're getting what you consider to be better value than what you have already, I don't care what it does for me. I don't care what it does for them. If they needed one crappy running back just to fill their roster so they have enough started, like they only had 1 running back, but we always have to start 2. But they have an amazing roster besides that 1 running back. And even if they had nobody in it, they'd win, but they just need another one. I'll give them my crappy running back for their great wide receiver or great whatever, and let them go ahead and win it all because they have this crappy running back. But I got the better value. I don't care what they got that year or that player for their one situation. If you have better value, you can't pass up better value. It's in the words, value. It's better. You want all the value, you want all that potential, all that skill on your team. If it's not the best situation for you, then hold on to it. Wait until you can trade him for even more value or trade somebody else for even more value to fill that one situational issue that you're having by making that trade. I think that that sort of value needs to always come first over the situation.
Exactly. I'm going to throw out a hypothetical situation. Say you're sitting there with Eddie Lacy. Eddie Lacy's your RB1. You only have to start 1 running back a week. And your backup running back is Devonta Freeman. So clearly your running back situation is Eddie Lacy and nothing.
Mm-hmm.
But somebody comes to you, offers you Julio Jones for Eddie Lacy. Clearly, in a vacuum, Julio Jones is by far the better value. That leaves you with, you have to take it, then that leaves you with no running back. You could then take Julio Jones, and to a normal owner, you could flip Julio Jones for Le'Veon Bell. You then just upgraded your running back situation because you took the better value. You know, if you accept better value, you can then trade the value you already had. You know, look at it like a stock market. If you just increase the value of your team, then you can sell off some of the other value on your team to increase it at another position. It's just like the draft. Draft for talent, not for need. Trade best player available, not trade for need. I feel like it's the exact same situation. All right, Tyler, you got anything else you want to hit on with us before we move on?
No, I think we covered that one pretty well.
All right, good deal. This next one comes from Carl Landra. Next year, I need to revamp my wide receivers and took Evans, Benjamin, and Odell Beckham Jr. in the draft. Now desire to enhance my running backs, who are Ellington, Latavius Murray, McKinnon, and Christine Michael. Who should I deal and who should I target? Now, I actually ended up talking to Carl Landra a little bit more in the thread, which I'm pulling up now. The way it works is she has to drop. I'm assuming it. No, Carl might be a guy. This person might has to drop 4 players from the roster in order to do the rookie draft. So what they're essentially trying to do is either package players to improve their roster or cut players. Now, clearly, we already talked about it. Cutting players for nothing is never the best answer. The players we'd be looking at cutting right now would be Terrence Williams, Wheaton, Bortles, and Steven Jackson. These are all players that, even on an 18-man roster, besides Steven Jackson, you can probably find a roster spot for.
Yeah, they have some value, at least.
Exactly. So I feel like you could package, Terrence Williams and Andre Ellington, especially Williams. Williams has some hype after some crazy catches he made in the playoffs, even though he's not a very good wide receiver, in my opinion. And, try and combine them, improve, your running back position, and clear off a player that you were going to cut anyways. Marcus Wheaton, same thing. I wouldn't be looking to deal any of your sexy wide receivers. Evans and Beckham are going to hold down that position for you for a long, long time. It gives you a lot of room to screw up on your other positions, and you'd still be fine. But I still have a lot of hope for Christine Michael. But if something happens with Lynch and the hype gets started, I could easily see moving him when the hype is high. Scott, you have anything else you wanted to add on to that?
No, I think mostly you hit it on the head. Not knowing all the information you have, and I'm not going to pull up the thread because it's just too much effort for me right now. You have Evans, Benjamin, OBJ. We already talked about earlier in the show, build around your wide receivers. I am not getting rid of any of those wide receivers. I'm not dropping them because I need more running backs. I'm not trading them because I need more running backs. I'm holding on to those 3 guys, especially those 3 guys. All huge potential, all very, very young. So, if you're thinking about getting rid of somebody in order to improve your running backs, package some guys. You could probably package an Ellington or a Michael or a McKinnon or a Murray, any of those running backs you already mentioned, add him with another player lower on your roster that you're thinking about dropping, and get a better running back that you like. I know there's lots of people that are high on Ellington and high on McKinnon right now, and even Murray. I don't know very many people high on Michael at the very moment, but that just comes and goes. That'll just be in waves. Everyone's always got their waves when they're high on Michael. I feel like that's every single offseason. But I'd say don't rush it. Don't be so worried that your wide receivers are getting good and your running backs aren't, that you're forcing things to make the running backs better. I say stand pat and let it slowly develop.
All right, Tyler.
Yeah, I mean, Scott's got it right. And honestly, as I'm looking at that running back core, and Drew, you and I play in a lot of leagues, you can attest to this, that would crush some of my running back cores in some of my leagues.
Well, that's because you
I wouldn't have any problem having those guys. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have any trouble having that particular crew of running backs and just going forward with it like that. Murray should be okay. Ellington, at worst, is still going to be a fine PPR running back. And McKinnon, depending on what happens with AP, could be the lead back in Minnesota. So, you know, I don't really see much need to do a whole lot. I mean, you know, obviously everybody wants Le'Veon Bell, but that's easier said than done.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, it's a solid running back core. Honestly, the only reason I'd be looking at moving them is so you can package up and try and get some value for the bottom of your roster guys, because it's going to be harder to get value for them individually. Really, if you wanted to just hold them and be okay with dropping them, you'd be fine. You'd be fine going into the next season. You know, whatever you pick up in your rookie draft, it's probably going to be solid. And I'd be feeling pretty confident going into the next season. I mean, you got Jimmy Graham starting at tight end. You got Matt Ryan at quarterback. You know, that's a solid group of players, and I'd feel very confident going into the next season.
I agree. I think that's smart. Tyler, do you have anything else you wanted to add on that?
Nah, I think you nailed it. Of course, I didn't see the thread. I didn't know what the rest of his team was, but dude, I'd cool with that roster as it stands right now. I'd roll with that into week 1 and be perfectly okay with it.
Awesome. All right. So to go on to our next question, this one's from Vakar, I believe is how you would say that. Says, not necessarily a question, but I'd love if you discuss your take on the player values in our auction league. I'm interested to see who you thought the steals and reaches were in our draft, and now that it's all played out.
All right, this was an auction league. You know, we three were all in, as well as I feel like all 12 members are in the subreddit together. So let's get to it. Who do you think were some of the biggest reaches out of the draft besides Jimmy Garoppolo for $22? Oh, that killed me. I clicked the wrong name and bid on him because I was bidding on my phone, and I wasted my money bidding on Jimmy or on freaking Garoppolo. I was so mad. But let's what do you guys think?
Oh man, I don't have all the numbers in front of me. There was too many receivers, in my opinion, that went up in the 200s. That is for sure.
This was a $1,000 budget, by the way. So this was $200. I have a $1,000 budget. It's 30-man rosters for a 12-man league. No kickers, no defense, no IDP. So this is purely offensive 30-man rosters. We went pretty deep.
Do you have a link possibly for the for all the final amounts that everybody went for?
I do. You can get. Yeah, you got to go to the 2014 league page. But if you want to just pull up the auction, here, it's in the script.
Oh.
But to me, the biggest reaches all came at the wide receiver position. That and the 102 and 101 went for 152 and 148, which makes sense with some of the values that people went for, like Cooks, stuff like that, but at the same time, a lot of the players that went cheaper than the 102 and 101, I feel like I would have rather had them over the 101, especially for the price difference. Tyler, what were some of the big reaches in your opinion?
As I was looking at this question, looking over the auction league, I was really having a tough time coming coming to terms with defining reach in this draft, it became really clear very early that if you wanted elite young wide receivers, you were going to have to pay. And it was as simple as that. I went into the draft saying I'm going to get my 1 and 2. I didn't think I was going to have to pay $400 freaking for them, but I was going to get my 1 and 2, and that's what it was going to be. And I did it to my own detriment. I did it, and did not round out the roster very well at all. But I mean, I guess technically, yeah. Dez, Julio, OBJ, Mike. I got Nuke and AJ Green. They're all, I guess, technically reaches within the confines of our budget. But if you wanted them, you're gonna have to pay for them. It was It was simple as that.
Yeah. If you wanted that young wide receivers, you were going to have to pay for them, and I severely underrated how much they were going to cost, and it changed my strategy from almost immediately. I ended up with Eric Decker and Deshaun Jackson as my number 1 and number 2 wide receivers, but I ended up with 4 running back ones on my team. I got Giovanni Bernard, Isaiah Crowell, Mark Ingram, and Trey Mason for $260. If you throw on Kristen Michael, I got them for all around $300. It's not a way I'm used to building, but essentially I have to go into this wanting to draft young wide receivers because you're either going after young wide receivers and hoping to waiver running backs and piece together something, or you're just going to completely ignore the position and hope that your wide receivers carry you, because I can't see any other way that it works right now.
Yeah, all right. Now that I had a quick minute there to look over some of those values that we got, I'd definitely say the biggest reaches and biggest steals, in my opinion, both came from the wide receiver position. I think some of those young wide receivers I wouldn't have paid as much for. I mean, Jarvis Landry went for $120. Oh, man. As much as I like Jarvis, I wanted to try and get him. I mean, $80 less than what... I mean, Des Bryant went for $200 even. Julio Jones, $201. So you're spending only $80 less, not even half that, for Jarvis Landry, or a little bit over half that for Jarvis Landry. I don't think Jarvis Landry is at the halfway point of where those other guys are. I don't think that is great value in those picks. Not to pick on Sticky by doing that there. That's just one of the big ones I saw. I think I got lucky with some of my grabs. One in particular I think that could go either way, but I think was a steal personally would be Victor Cruz. I believe I got him for 17. Where'd he go? Yeah, Victor Cruz went for 17. But I mean, all these guys that got sold for what might be considered a deal, everybody saw them go through, and there was legitimate concerns about what might happen in their futures. So there was nobody really that I think went under the radar completely. I don't think anyone thought and I don't think there was a single player that didn't have doubts for his future that went for something cheap.
I don't know. I got Jimmy Graham for $109.
That is a good deal.
Concerns as well. He's 28. He's dealt with ticky-tacky injuries almost every season. Granted, I'll still take him at 109 when Gronk went for 175.
188 is what Gronk went. So I mean, comparing the two, and especially in most redraft leagues that I'm in, or even a lot of dynasty leagues, those guys both go late first round, mid second at the very latest, I feel. So I mean, for that big of a disparity between the two, I'd definitely say Jimmy Graham was a steal at the time. I'd have to agree with that.
Yeah, to me, the biggest steal of the draft was probably Le'Veon Bell for 150. He slipped through before the young wide receivers made the price jump up to, the 175s, the 180s, the 190s. And I think if he had waited, 12 more hours to go through, he wouldn't have gone for near as cheap as he did. Tyler, what were some more of the steals that you saw? You kind of hit on the reaches.
Yeah, I mean, the steals, the running backs, man, overall. I mean, look at your roster. I don't have it pulled up in front of me, but to acquire that group of running backs for what, 1.5 elite wide receivers we're going for, it's not
Yeah,
bad.
real quick,
I
so
mean,
I can give you some numbers real quick,
trusted.
Tyler, if you can hear me.
Yeah,
Giovanni
I
went
guess.
for 70. Crowell went for 61. Ingram 59. Cunningham only 9. Doug Martin 28. Christine Michael 57. Trey Mason 72. That is his stable of backs.
Yeah, that's good value, man. It's good value. My strategy going in was I'm going to load up on wideouts, and this group was a little bit sharper than what I thought what I thought we were getting into. I thought I was going to be able to sneak in Theo Riddick, Jerick McKinnon. I'm going to be able to come in and get these guys on the cheap, and it just wasn't happening, man. I'm really pumped for this. I'm really looking forward to it, to be honest. I mean, I think it's going to be a really great league.
Yeah, I feel like this is just round 2 of the subreddit money league from last season. We went into that startup, and you could tell immediately we were drafting with a bunch of sharks. Like 2 years in a row, I have entered into the toughest drafts I've ever gone into, and they've been by far the most entertaining and challenging leagues I've been in, and I enjoy them more than any of them. But I think that about covers it. I guess we can go ahead and move on to my rant of the week, which, again, I waited till the last minute on this one because I'm lazy. My rant of the week is for all of you people out there who really like Chris Matthews. Chris Matthews, before the Super Bowl, caught 0 balls in his whole career. 0. So, I don't get it. Like, I get that the Seahawks don't have any good big wide receivers, but he's not going to be the guy. He's not. There's a reason he was working at Popeyes or whatever like 3 weeks ago. I mean, nothing against him. He made some killer catches, but he's not going to be a dynasty asset. He's not going to be putting up 4 catches for 100 yards and a touchdown in your dynasty league next year. To the guys in my auction I'm in right now, I don't know why anybody paid more than $1 for him. Just saying. I don't get it. I'd rather have Deron Carter, and I went all about on how I don't think Deron Carter's worth anything last week. And Scott apparently thinks I need to go on a rant about how I suck at thinking up rants. Apparently, after 15 weeks, I don't have enough things to be mad about anymore. Maybe I'm just working through my anger management problems. Who knows?
No. It's not
Maybe
true.
maybe you people need to go and just post some more shenanigans on the subreddit for me to get mad at. Maybe you people have been posting way too many intelligent and well thought out arguments and not enough blatantly not thought out arguments. Somebody just go post something ignorant, please, so I have something to rant about next week. All right. Well, that is the end of our show for this week. We didn't have any hiccups. We made it to the end. Everything recorded. So that's good news.
Woo! We made it.
We did. And Tyler only cut out for all of 10 seconds. It's a new record.
Really, only 10. Nice.
Yeah.
So maybe my wife will allow me to do the show downstairs next week and not up here in the isolation of the back bedroom. I love your koozie, Scott.
No one else
Everybody.
does, though. No one likes the Broncos.
You know what? 2/3 of the people in this podcast here think that the Broncos are amazing. And if majority rules, that means we all think the Broncos are amazing.
Right, but y'all are co-hosts, and I'm the host. So, voting majority means I still win. And your GM has horse teeth, so just saying.
Oh, no, don't go there, dude. Not
I already
on
went
Elway.
there.
Ah, the GOAT.
No, he's a horse. All right, guys. Remember, if you have a small, a later round prospect you want us to take a look at, post them in the podcast thread. Post them in the suggestion thread. I'm also going to be putting up sign-up threads for more mock drafts coming up this next week. I want to try and get a good many of these running. I want us to get some solid ADP data for the subreddit. Within the next week or two, I'm also going to put up some sign-ups for 2QB mock drafts because I'd really like us to get some ADP data for that because it doesn't exist anywhere else. I think that'd be a really cool thing to provide for the subreddit. Once again, if you guys have any comments, questions, suggestions, bitches, moans, complaints, leave them in the podcast thread. Send them to us in a private message. However you want to get them to us. This has been the Dynasty Playbook, Dynasty FF's dedicated podcast. I've been your host, Drew. You can find me on Reddit at EAF_Marine and on Twitter at DrewDotsonNFL. With me have been my co-host, Tyler. You can find Tyler on Reddit at Barrels and Scott, and you can find Scott on Reddit at Suey35, and you can't find either of them on Twitter because neither of them want to talk to you.
Nope. Don't talk to me. Ever. Well, maybe a little bit on Reddit, but...
All right. Thanks for listening, guys, and we'll see you next week.